All right, welcome everybody to our Resource YYC Lunch and Learn. Today's host is Trudy Pelletier, who is the president of Trudy Pelletier Consulting. And I'll hand it over to Trudy.
Okay, thank you, Rosemary. Welcome, Resource YYC members and guests. Today's conversation is called Why We See What We See and Focus On. So I will provide a handout of the PowerPoint following the presentation. You still may want to have a pen and paper in front of you in the event that you would like to take notes. Biological instincts are the keys to understanding how we are wired, and they are the keys to our success today. I had an extraordinary journey in 2018. I registered in a dual track of a mastery and certification program, one called Empowering Men and the other called Empowering Women, material relevant to all genders. And through the design of the program, I interviewed and researched topics, 16 different topics with 192 men and women, both in the professional realm and the personal realm. And still today, when I think about some of those conversations, I am startled by the volume of resentment between men and women that I believe is mainly sourced by not understanding our own instincts and how we are wired and how we operate and how people of other genders are wired and operate. So while the program was called Empowering Men and Empowering Women, if we have anyone who's a non-conforming gender, I don't know where you will find yourself in this information, and I promise you that you will. I believe much is at stake given that volume of resentment that I exposed and got present to. Fundamentally, our relationships, communication, quality of life, productivity, professional fulfillment, peace of mind, needs, wants, and dreams. So this information is relevant for both at home life as well as at work. And I'm going to be focusing on both. My objectives today is for you to learn some of the differences based on biology and evolution, to understand the wiring and the influencers of what we see and what we don't see, and transform those moments of frustration and separation with understanding and connection. And, you know, it's not moments that we mainly talk about. When there's a rub with my boss because, you know, I've interrupted him or he seems not open to my ideas, there's just a little bit of friction, a little bit of tension. And that's the kind of experience that I'm talking about transforming as a result of getting an understanding as to how we're wired and what influences us. The first thing I'm going to ask you to do is take a guess. What percentage of our choices and behaviors, so we choose something and then we take action, what percentage would you allocate for conscious choice? And Gary, Simon, I'm going to ask you to just take a guess. What percentage would you apply for conscious choice and behaviors? Gary, you got to come off mute. Now I hear you. What percentage would you apply?
I would say 10%.
10%? Okay, thank you. And Simon?
More about 80%.
8 or 7. Okay, thanks, guys. Well, the correct answer, if you consider the brain as an iceberg, the top part of our brain represents the conscious choice. They say maximum 5%. And David Eagleman, who's a famous neuroscientist, says it's probably closer to 3. He said more is happening under the hood that we don't even know. And our brain is running the show. And we think we're choosing and we're not. So the 95% falls in our instincts. It's how we are wired that just runs the show. So let me tell you more. I'm going to start by letting you know our roadmap for today. I'm going to introduce the duality of being human. And if you've been in my conversations before about some of the differences, this may be a familiar distinction for you. I'm going to be introducing the operating modes that people operate in, 7 differences, what we see and don't see. And this is when we're going to get into some of the brain and neuroscience and nuances, specifically between men and women. I'm also bringing to the table how men and women see solving problems differently and how automatic that is because it's in our instinct. And then finally, some partnership choices that we can make. Now, when I say partnership, what I mean is being on the same side. That's all I mean, operating on the same side. So if you think about some of the business teams that you've been on, have you worked with someone who seems to have their own agenda running the show, by a show of hands? And Simon, I know I can't see you, but I'm assuming most of us have that experience where we're on a team of some kind and someone is running their own agenda. Sorry, I'm just checking out the chat here because my chat is flashing and I'm not sure why. Okay, so well, let me go back here. I'm going to invite you to be in this conversation very much on purpose. So there's 2 ways that you can be here. And most of us show up on default. Said another way, it's on automatic. That's the 95% unconscious choices. So the way that you can be in this conversation is really to be here on purpose, inside of curiosity. Really asking, how does this apply to me? Where does this show up for me? And you can even take on being like an alien scientist studying the human species, men and women, and see if that gives you some broader context. The reason I'm inviting you to do this is if you listen from your default place, anything that you are unfamiliar with, your brain unknowingly will discard that information. Why? Because it's so new, the brain can't relate to it, and so it discards it. In other words, how most of us listen is to take in information that validates our already existing context. In other words, what we already know. All right, the duality of human being. The first, it's like 2 sides of the same coin. And on the first side, it's what I call human on automatic. And it's running from instinct, impulse, and compulsion. Now, a definition of compulsion is an irrational impulse to act, especially against one's will. So in other words, we find ourselves doing or saying something that is incongruent with our intention or incongruent with our goal or objective or even our heart's desire. And it's our default way of being. In other words, the brain's running the show. And it's normal for most people, most of the time, by the statistics of less than 5% or maximum 5% are we making conscious choices in our lives. And it's survival. So our instincts are wired for us to survive. And one of the definitions of survival is to outlast another. So you can hear inside of that definition that there's no partnership. More than 80% of strategic plans do not get executed. Why? They say because human beings, these leaders, cannot give up their personal agenda for the good of the whole. Even though logically we know that we're stronger together, when our instinct is driving us, we are self-interested. And what happens is we're like a pendulum swinging in reaction to people and to circumstances. And the more we're in reaction, the more our instinct is triggered. And what happens is it's like a wrecking ball in our life. because what instinct automatically has us do is put distance between us and other people. We label, we justify our behavior, we personalize things that have nothing to do with us, we accuse, we objectify. And what objectify is to look at as another human being as a fixed object, like they are this way. And inside of our brain deciding that, we're in reaction and instinct runs a stronger grip on us. And this is what instinct looks like. Power struggles, confrontation. We're not on the same side. We have competing agendas, competing goals, competing for airtime. That is the result. These are the moments of tension that I was speaking about when I opened. Now, the flip side of the coin is what I call human on purpose. And human on purpose operates from choice. And the only way that we have choice is by being conscious and purposeful of it. In other words, what we're doing is we're creating ourselves or we're generating ourselves. It's a victory over human on automatic. And it's the only space in which we can create partnership. Again, partnership is defined as being on the same side. And that's what this next slide reflects, is whether we're at home, at work, it really is about being on the same side. We say that there are two operating modes. Hunting mode and gathering mode is what you'll recognize it from. So it really is sourced by evolution. And we're steeped in a story that the world is about competition, strongest of the fittest, struggle, and conflict. And that context of our world actually triggers our instinct. And in caveman, cavewoman days, there were real threats. There were saber-toothed tigers. And at that time, men operated in hunting mode and women operated in gathering mode. Today, in modern society, that's actually not the case. Where women move in and out of hunting mode and gathering mode, sometimes where we don't even know that the mode that we're in. And most men operate most of the time in hunting mode, also I'm calling business mode, and some of the time in gathering mode. So I can say as an entrepreneur and a single mother, I am managing myself in my business and in my home life way more effectively as a result of understanding this. I also will tell you that I relate to the qualities and characteristics of hunting mode way more than what I did in gathering mode. And I'll be speaking a little bit more to that. So there are several influences that have a female be more wired in gathering mode, also known as social mode, as well as hunting and business mode. So let me tell you, there are women that go to work. There are people that go to work in social mode. That doesn't mean that they're not there to work. It means that their number one instinctive priority is to be connected to people. When in hunting mode, the number one priority instinct is to be productive. And in fact, we feel safe when we're in hunting mode and we're being productive. And we feel safe when we're in gathering mode being connected. So I can tell you, I interviewed in one of the topics with a young woman. She was a year and a half, new, her first job in an oil and gas company. And she recognized that she goes to work in social mode. And she has this female executive that she said, I think she hates me. Now, day after day, whenever they interact in those brief moments, this young professional woman has the experience that this woman hates, this female executive hates her, only to discover that that female executive is in hunting mode. her number one priority is being productive. So being connected, morning greetings, how are you, water cooler talk, she's not interested in, she doesn't have time for. And the young lady totally got freed up, understanding, oh, it's not personal. This woman is in hunting business mode and I'm in gathering social mode, and we just have competing priorities. So right there inside of knowing that, the tension was dissolved. Again, I just want to point to this material applies to genders of all on the spectrum. And I don't know where you will find yourself as I relate the different qualities and characteristics. So again, we're saying women move in and out. I'm saying women move in and out of gathering mode and hunting mode at the drop of a hat, whereas most men operate most of the time in hunting mode and some of the time in gathering mode. Our consciousness in hunting mode is single focus, whereas in gathering mode, it's diffused awareness. So diffuse means to pour everywhere. And this is actually a function of what we see and what we don't see. And I will be saying more about that. Our orientation in hunting mode is we operate in a state of commitment, whereas in gathering mode, we're operating in a state of openness. Our attention on in hunting mode is a specific result, intention, destination. Or in gathering mode, it's on alternatives and possibilities and options. The vision in hunting mode is what's called track vision. And in gathering mode, scan vision. I'll be talking more about that. And in hunting mode, we're screening out the irrelevant. Whereas in gathering mode, we're in tune with the physical, emotional, and mental states of people in our inner circle, as well as people who are in our physical space. And I said 7 differences, and I'm only giving you, I can see 5. So I did take a couple of out to focus on this. All right. Oh boy, she keeps moving. All right, so here's the seeing and not seeing. Men operate single focused most of the time, and that is a function of testosterone. So their testosterone allows them to have track vision, and it's actually wired from evolution, track the deer, track the deer, track the deer. So their vision is wired for focused tracking distance. And if you've ever had a man look for a set of keys or look for his day timer, and when it's right in front of him, part of what's playing out is how the cones in his eyes have him wired. Women's have diffused awareness in gathering mode, which is where we originally spent all of our time. And what that means is we have scan vision. So a woman has a 45-degree peripheral vision. Why? It's a function of safety for women. Being the smaller, weaker sex in cavewoman days, and you know, I'm not here to debate whether we're still the smaller, weaker sex. We have peripheral vision simply to be able to see more around us to keep us safe. Now, here's an interesting fun fact. And Gary, you may have heard me say this before. Sex researchers say that women look at men's bodies as much as men look at women's bodies. The challenge is men get caught because they have to do this because of the track vision. Where women can be in a restaurant or walking down the street and they can say, hey, look at that guy over there, and no one needs to turn their head. And it was interesting in my research, all men said that they have been accused, right, of looking at another woman. And it's a function of their single focus track vision, where we have scan vision and don't need to turn our head. So that's a fun fact. All right, we're going to look at some specifics in hunting business mode, and I'm going to start with some of the fundamental characteristics. So first off, in hunting mode, we operate in a state of commitment. And we're out to produce a specific result, intention, or destination. And with men, and we're single focused. Now, the difference between men and women, and it is a nuance, again, a man's volume of testosterone really allows him to be single focused, single-minded. And I can tell you in the research, much of the complaints around male leadership was he comes from do it my way or the highway. And part of what's at play is he's operating in a state of commitment to the result. And I'm not saying all men all the time, and it was a common complaint. Whereas with women, because of the different hormones, there's a nuance, and I'll be speaking about that. So first off, in hunting mode for both men and women and people of all genders who relate to this operating mode, we are always listening for and looking for what is relevant to what it is we're out to produce. So a man actually does have that track vision, and it is like having blinders on. There was a story, Don, who's an engineer, said that his wife, Kathy, when they were first married, would put a laundry basket at the base of the stairs. And a week or two went by and he just didn't see it. He's on a mission to go to bed, or he's on a mission to go and change. He was on a mission out to produce something, and it automatically, instinctively put on the blinders. And she did not believe that he didn't see that laundry basket there for that length of time. And it's because more so for men, the testosterone plays the role in screening out everything that is irrelevant. So they really do have track vision. Again, back to track for the deer. And, you know, they're listening for what's relevant in terms of what's useful for them to fulfill, what's actionable, and how does this give me perspective to, again, fulfill on that intention. And they're listening for what's relevant. So if we come in and, you know, aren't aware that maybe they're single focused and working a deadline, and we're interrupting them, that can be a moment right then and there of tension. One of the leaders that I do executive coaching for realized when he learned this information, it would make a real difference if he put on his door, working a deadline, please don't interrupt. So just simple communication that really supported the operating mode that he was in. A woman in hunting mode, it's somewhat different in that the way that she's processing information is sorting it. So a man really is blind to it because of the estrogen and because of our own hormones. We're actually able to see other information and sorting out what is relevant to our specific goal, intention, result. And we say because of our hormones, a woman is single focused for bursts of time. Because we don't have the level of testosterone that a man does, our capacity to stay single focused is shorter than what a man's is. We say that women operate in hunting mode mostly focused and somewhat focused. So there's degrees of focus or relatively focused, depending on some of the circumstances that she's working under. So there is a track vision when a woman is in hunting mode, but it's more like she sees things on the peripheral rather than not seeing anything at all. It's like conversations that are not relevant to what she's producing sound like a helicopter, you know, burr, 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 like that. So she's not really listening, but it's not like a man's being able to shut it down. And things that are memorable when she's in hunting mode can distract her attention from being single focused or mostly focused. So those are some of the differences between men and women. Now, here's what I'm not saying. I'm not saying women can't focus. I'm saying there are certain circumstances that really allow us to dive in and be single focused. And that's where I'm going next. So first off, the degree of focus is influenced by a deadline. So I'll give you an example. I, for years and years and years, as a business person and as an entrepreneur, would beat myself up because I would organize my desk space in my office, and 6 or 7 weeks later, it was a disaster, a complete disaster. And what I would do is I would berate myself and I would criticize myself like I can't keep my stuff together. After learning about this, and I can tell you, there was a Tuesday night, February, about 7:30, I'd had a wildly productive day because what I was doing was designing a family retreat for a family business that had engaged me. And as I'm putting on my winter coat, I was, turning in my office and I got papers piled high and books everywhere. And I pulled out resources. And as soon as I got what I need, I toss it aside. And I'd had this wildly productive day. And for the first time, I actually appreciated that me in hunting mode, when I'm focused, can produce any result in any environment. It really doesn't matter. So having that deadline really drives a woman's ability to be able to focus. So that was Tuesday night. Friday morning, I come in, I don't have any demand on my schedule, and I see the mess. Papers, books piled high everywhere. And again, not knowing this information, I would have wasted almost a full day getting my office organized because I would have been overwhelmed by that mess. What I knew to do was give myself a deadline. So I gave myself 2.5 hours. So I gave myself the morning to get my office organized, and it was pristine 2.5 hours later. So I shifted myself from gathering mode into hunting mode, which with the deadline allowed me to focus and move through the papers and the mess rather than become overwhelmed by it. That's one of the ways I'm managing myself differently. I don't spend any time beating myself up now when my office gets messy, because I know that's me in hunting mode, focused and producing a result. Other influencers, obviously, as I said, are our hormones. Yes, uncomfortable, whether it is or isn't for you, our menstrual cycle. And again, the pressure and the enjoyment of the work are other influencers. So I'm just going to pause and see if there's any questions from anybody. And you can put it in the chat as we're going through it, if that's more comfortable for you rather than speaking it. All right, now I'm going to speak about gathering mode and social mode. So in gathering mode, I said we walk around open and available to alternatives, possibilities, and options with diffuse awareness. And again, the word diffuse means to pour everywhere. That means our awareness is taking in a larger space and more of the environment. And in fact, women who relate to gathering mode will recognize that the environment talks to us. So that Friday morning, when I walked into my office, every piece of paper was screaming at me. My books were screaming at me. When I walk in home to my home in gathering mode, it's the dirty dish, the cup, the socks on the floor, pick me up, put me away, dust me. It actually speaks to us. So Natalie, I don't know whether you can relate to this. You're the, well, I don't know. I'm assuming it's Simon. It could be Simone. Oh no, that would have an E. So I don't know whether you can relate to the environment speaking to you.
No, it's Simon.
It is Simon. Okay, thank you, Simon. I thought so. I apologize for that. But most men don't know that this happens for a woman. And so when a woman says to a man, and this is more in the home life, why can't you see the mess? Why can't you help me? He actually doesn't see it and experience it in the same way that we do when we're in gathering mode. In gathering mode, the way that a woman specifically processes information and relates to the environment is everything is irrelevant. Everything is relevant. So that's where the overwhelm comes in. So whether I'm walking into my messy home or my messy office, or I'm juggling, which most women are today, right? Juggling both business life and home life. And this is one of the reasons why women are known as stronger multitaskers than men, is because in gathering mode, everything is relevant. Now, what easily happens is, again, we can become overwhelmed and paralyzed by everything being relevant. All we have to do is give ourselves a deadline, and that shifts our brain into hunting mode. Make a list prioritizing the top 3 things or 5 things we're going to do. That shifts us into hunting mode because it creates some focus for us. And so that's a way that we can manage ourselves. Again, we've got that scan vision, so we're taking in the whole environment. And mental, emotional, and physical aspects of our environment and of our family is speaking to us. So when a woman has a sick child and she has to go to work anyway, most women will say that they can be connected to that child and have some sense as to how well they're doing or not. My son lived overseas for 5 years, and there were times where I just knew I needed to call him, and I would call him, and sure enough, he was dealing with something, needed some kind of conversation. So that emotional and mental connection can be someone in our physical space, or it can be someone in our inner circle who we're connected with. All right, a nuance between men and women in hunting mode and business mode is regarding solving problems. And it'll be interesting, and I would love to hear your comments, guys, whether or not you relate to this. So we say that most men welcome problems. Why? Because it's something to fix. It's an opportunity to provide solutions. It's an opportunity to showcase skills, expertise, or value. Because there's a result to produce. Right? So we're back to being productive, and in hunting mode, the way that we feel safe is by being productive, and it builds self-worth and meaning. Women's first instinctive reaction to problems is problems shouldn't be. There's a level of annoyance and frustration. Now, for women in hunting mode, that can shift pretty quickly. And again, I'm just going to go back to my research that most women said instinctively that's our reaction. Any comments or questions about that?
Well, I would say my first reaction is that annoyance, frustration, and problems shouldn't be, and then move on to something to fix, etc.
Okay. So can I ask, Simon, did you, when I gave the characteristics of hunting mode and gathering mode, did you relate more to the characteristics of gathering mode?
No, more of the hunting mode, I think, in general. Okay.
So that's interesting, right? That your first reaction is problem shouldn't be. Yeah, and I got you, you switched very quickly, but that's cool that you know that you relate to it that way.
Yes.
How about you, Natalie? You want to share anything? I guess if you don't turn off your mic, I'll take that as a no. How about you, Gary? What do you see for yourself here?
Yeah, I suppose men are generally looking for something to fix. For the most part, you're always looking for something to do around the house, or chores to do. But I think women have different priorities, I suppose you could say. But
So
yeah,
what do
very
you
much when, I know Myrna has said in the past, if her work area is cluttered or messy, that she can't concentrate. And I have made that observation and she's made those comments. Whereas
Yeah,
I think,
I didn't include this on it, but we actually say that when a woman has a big task to accomplish, whether it's in her workspace or home space, and she finds herself cleaning or organizing files, that what she's actually doing is preparing to focus. And
right,
so many women could relate to beating themselves up for procrastinating, or even just criticizing themselves that I've got this big thing to work on, and here I am, doing a load of laundry. And so we're reframing procrastination to preparing the environment to focus.
right. Yeah, very much so.
Yeah, because that is one of the critical influencers that allows a woman to focus. Yeah. And what
Myself,
do
I
you,
think I do need like, for example, I just finished my taxes, and so there's some procedure to sort everything out, and then part of that is cleaning up and getting things organized to a point where you can start putting things together. So it's kind of similar for men in some areas too, I think.
Yes, I'd
so
agree
does
with
that
that.
mean you're relating to the first reaction of problem shouldn't be? Or
Well,
are you talking about cleaning up and organizing your environment to get the taxes done?
yeah, I mean, you have to do that because
Oh,
everything's just all in a big mess. So you have to go through the procedures, sorting, and I guess cleaning, and then getting to the crux of the, the work.
right. Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't be able to get that complete without the organization, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what we say is in hunting mode, mostly because men operate in a state of commitment, he's not open to alternatives and options. Where what we would say a woman in hunting mode has the capacity to be focused and open to alternatives. So I talked to one female executive in this particular topic, and I remember the research. And she said, absolutely, I can have a plan, but I am always scanning, people's ideas on how we can improve and make it better as we go along. But don't give me too many. So whether that ceiling is 2 or that ceiling is 5, depending on it, she could relate to having a ceiling on it. And then don't waste your time. So don't put ideas that are not proven on the table or practical or relevant to the specific intention. And I certainly know as a female entrepreneur, I could relate to that myself. Like, I'm not always, I'm scanning for improvement, continuous improvement, but I do have a ceiling. Let's not go overboard on that. Where most men, once they make up their mind and have the pathway set out, are no longer open to alternatives and options. So what we're not saying is he's not open. What we're saying is the men have a shorter window of being able to accept people's ideas and be open to their options. And that once that pathway is chosen, he's operating in that state of commitment. So it does occur like it's, more difficult for him to accept new ideas and change the course. Okay, so moments of tension, and I'm specifically going to talk about, I might have some things come out of order here, guys. I'm sorry, I did not realize. Well, let me get it all on the table and then we'll go through it. Oh yeah, definitely out of order. So in hunting mode, these are the symptoms or the actions or behaviors when a person has been interrupted with their focus or distracted from their focus. So withdraws, interrupts, shuts down, shows up as frustrated, withholds information, or turns away. Whereas in gathering mode, what we would say is, a woman is got all these competing priorities and things to do and can be distracted by it. is appearing disinterested in someone in gathering mode or hunting mode because they are so focused, or wants to know so much because they want to be a part of it. Remember, being connected is the number one driver as a function of safety. So they might be interrogating that person to feel included in something. And this can happen at work. If a woman is operating in social mode and a man is operating, or another woman is operating in business mode, including that social mode person can be very challenging because they land as not being focused. So there can be a quick label of, a time waster or a butterfly. Social butterfly is another common one that we would use. In gathering mode, there's this instinct for reciprocity, being polite, pretending, and could use it against. So I'm going to go to the home life here for a moment. And it's like, that project in the garage is more important than me. That's what that sounds like. So again, once human on automatic is triggered as a result of being in reaction, our instinct is running the show, we're in tension, and what we're automatically doing, whether we're aware of it or not, is we're labeling, objectifying, dismissing people, accusing, and or taking personally. So I just, I'm interested to know whether or not you relate to these experiences of tension, whether that be at work or home or both.
Oh, I relate to it.
Okay. And in both environments?
Yes.
Okay. And what about you, Gary?
Yeah, there's certainly some of the aspects I can relate to.
Okay. All right, well, we're going to go on to say, so what are the partnership choices? So remember, guys, partnership is about being on the same side. It is not about being a doormat or giving over, letting someone walk all over you. Remember, though, you're creating and generating yourself. So in other words, you're extending beyond your own instinct and operating on purpose. So first, you got to be willing. You got to be willing to account for brain wiring and instinct. And I can tell you that in many leadership programs, lots of business cultures. I had a man say it's been completely disproven that men and women's brains are wired differently. And that's not true. So got to be willing to account for there are some differences. Harvard Business Review did an article saying you can take the person out of the Stone Age, but you can't take the Stone Age out of the person. And David Eagleman, who I referred to earlier, I've got two of his books. I don't remember the name of the one book. And if you're interested, I'm happy to provide it. Said that, where was I going? That in spite of all of our lifestyle and technological advances, the human brain in its instinct is exactly the same it was in caveman, cavewoman days. So the other thing that we can do is notice the mode, right? So when a person is in hunting mode, they're typically operating with a sense of urgency. They're a little bit fast paced in their movement. They're going at the fastest way to get to where they're going possible. So let's not waste time and energy. Being in hunting mode is about conserving time and energy, so give me just the facts. They want the facts from trusted sources. And let's not talk about feelings. Excuse me. The signs that a person is in gathering mode is they're typically moving a little bit slower. They're highly attentive to all aspects of a person or environment. They're listening with a degree of patience versus in hunting mode, right? There's a sense of urgency. So notice the mode and start to increase your own awareness about what mode am I in right now. One of the most common places where men shift into gathering mode is when they're playing with their children. And we actually have to choose human spirit. So I can remember being at work, and I was in hunting mode. The guy I was working with was in hunting mode, and there was just like this immediate tension, and I felt disrespected and dismissed. Knowing this information, I was able to actually take a breath. So taking a breath is the quickest, fastest way for you to change your physiology on the inside. And thought leaders across all different spiritual, business, mental, emotional intelligence say that if we wait 3 seconds with a breath, something different will come out of our mouth. But because many of us, most of the time, are running on human on automatic, we're not even taking those 3 seconds. So you actually have to choose human spirit and be empowered. Be curious. What mode are they in? What's happening for them right now? This is one that really irritates people, especially women. Ask, when is a good time to talk about this? Make genuine space for them to choose, right? So sometimes we ask a question, when is a good time to talk about this? And we want it to be now, and we actually don't allow choice inside of what we've asked. We can generate interest, provide resources to support them, listen to learn, ask, support, which is, I guess, basically what I've just said, be other-centered. So human on automatic listens from a place of, what can I get? What do I need? So when we're human on automatic listening, it's all about us. When we're being human on purpose listening, it's about them and us. So the awareness is on both. And then appreciation for the mode that they're in, appreciation for what they're focused on, appreciation that you might be even interrupting them could make a really big difference. So on that note, I'm just gonna open it up. We've got about 9 minutes left for questions or comments. I can go back to any of the slides and clarify something if I moved over it too quickly. So Gary, I see you turned off your mute. Are you thinking about what it is you want to say?
No, I just thought maybe there'd be a bit of a conversation between the group and might wish to get involved. But
I would welcome that. So guys, what do you think? You think this is bogus? You think there's some reality in it? I mean, let's open it up. We have a few minutes.
For myself, yes, I recognize my behaviors in this and my wife's, and the friction that takes place between us. What I'm challenged a little bit is on the next steps, what to do about it. However, you've given a few ideas there.
Yeah, and like, we'll never get rid of our instincts, Simon. We'll never get rid of the differences. And it really is just practicing. So I will make the PowerPoint available. And you know what I'll do is I'll add the slide that identifies the signs of each mode as an additional piece of information that might make a difference. Do you notice it at all in the business world, what I spoke about? I get you saw it at home. Did you notice it at all in the business world?
In my previous job, yes. Currently, not so much.
Okay. Okay, got that. And Natalie, I see you're off mute. Do you want to add anything?
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much. I just wanted to thank you for a great presentation and quite a lot of examples. I can relate both in personal life and in professional life. My question would be, would you be willing to share the presentation by email with us later on?
Yes, I'm going to, PD, I'll add that extra slide that I just spoke about, and I will send it to Rosemary, and then Rosemary will send it to you guys. Yes.
Thank you so much. That would be great to share with
Yeah,
our partners
absolutely.
too,
Yeah.
Thank you.
And, they're recording this, and I'm not quite sure what they're going to be doing with the recording. But I imagine that it'll be available a different way. I think this is the first time that they're trying this. So, if you need another listen, you can also reach out to Rosemary and find out how you can have access to it.
So actually, this will be available on our event page on Resource YYC. We're posting the recording there, and it will be available through our YouTube channel as well.
Oh, terrific. Okay, thanks for being in the conversation, Rosemary. I didn't notice that you were, and I wasn't sure, what you guys were doing with it. So now we know. So unless, we've got 5 minutes left, any other questions? Well, thank you so much for participating. And, this has made such a difference in my life. Every relationship, both personally and professionally, is better for me understanding my own instincts and having the distinction of human on automatic and human on purpose. And it's a really big game to play to be a human on purpose, given how much, as David Eagleman says, is happening under the hood. So if there's any way that I can support you in that, I welcome that. And thank you so much for being here. And thank you to Resource YYC for providing the opportunity to share some of my expertise.
Well, thank you very much, Trudy, for sharing it with us. I'm sure everyone got at least a little something out of this. And as I said, so we are making this available online through the recording. So if you need to go back through for a refresher, feel free to find it. And thank you, everyone, for participating.
All right. Enjoy. Yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank
Enjoy
you.
the rest of the day.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Bye.